Hello, students, subjects, disciples, and dorks. Welcome back to our next live stream. And this one is continuing our look at bad habits in the church. And I have someone did discuss this with me outside of the chat room. Why am I doing this about the church? Because, again, as I've said in previous live streams, I can't level biblical concern against people who are not Christian. So therefore, this is really aimed. And when you look at Jesus and Paul and a lot of other of the disciples, whenever they level concerns or criticism, they do it at those who claim godliness and righteousness. They're not going after the person who's the avowed pagan, because what's the point? What are you going to do? Accuse them of not following God? Okay. So, and I'm not trying to get anyone down. I'm not trying to say everyone in the church does this. That is far from true. I'm just saying general patterns I see that are noticeable enough among enough people that it's an issue. Again, this isn't everybody in the church does this. No, of course not. But there are things that are happening often enough that we need to address it. So, and today's bad habit is me-ism, or what about me? It should be a little short today, but it's impactful nonetheless. So let's just face it. Let's just jump right in. The church in North America is declining. Let's not mix words here. Let's not mince words. Some of you students probably are too young to know this, but Parma Heights Baptist Church back in the day, back when I was a teenager, had about 1,200 people every Sunday. That parking lot was full, both front and back. And other churches around the area were likewise fairly packed. And it's just not the case anymore for many churches. Now you might be thinking, what about mega churches? Well, yeah, but that's what happens when everybody abandons ship and runs to it. They flee smaller churches and flock to the big one. Most statistics show that church growth these days comes from people jumping to another church. And they like to go to mega churches because we're all one big herd mentality. But more people in one spot does not mean aggregate increase. It just means everybody migrated. So, to today's point, though, I want to explain the one bad habit that is helping to foster this kind of church decline, and that is me-ism. And in particular, there's been a lot of ink spilled about this, but I'm going to reference an article I found online by a guy named Kerry Niehoff. And his article is called 5 Good Reasons a Church Should Close. Link will be in the description later. And I want to do one note before I jump in. He is a pastor at a church. And I did do a little digging, trying to find if there was anything controversial about him, any theological issues, and I couldn't. But if you find it, I apologize. However, the point I'm referencing is still relevant to what I'm trying to say today. So bear that in mind. If he turns out to be a theological flake, just dismiss whatever else he says, because what we're about to say has been mentioned by a lot of other studies. But his number 2 reasons why a church should probably close, or we could change if you prefer why it is closing down, is that the churches become more concerned with itself than others. In other words, me-focused. I'm going to quote him right now. So many churches are so consumed with the preferences of their members that they have no heart for their non-members. And yet the church is one of the few organizations on the planet that exists for the sake of its non-members. I mean, he's right. I mean, regardless of what he may or may not say about other things, he nailed that one. Let me give you an example of how me-ism can go terribly wrong. I'm going to level with you. Modern worship music bores me to death. It just does. The style is just boring. I always think for a God as powerful as ours, we need like bombast or thrash metal. I mean, listen, if you ever just YouTube the band Amon Amarth for a minute, okay? You don't have to listen to them or like them. Just get the feeling, or the band Sirenia, and listen to how they sing about things like myth or legend or Thor. I mean, it is just so powerful. And we don't do that with our God. We sing these happy, make you feel good songs, except for maybe I Rise, My Love. That's a pretty powerful one by, what is that, Newsboys, news song. But the point is, however, my preference aside, the music is uplifting, it's godly, and I definitely see the value in it. I see how it raises God up and carries the ministry. I see how it helps believers and unites us. Heck, my wife came to saving faith through music. She got linked into God because of music. It's a wonderful story. How could I not support worship music? But, and therefore, because of that, my preference can just take a back seat because it's not about me. So, in recent days, we've seen, in this era, you might say, we've seen a lot of people leave churches because their needs aren't being met. Which I always was curious about that one because I thought it was supposed to be meeting the needs of others, as Pastor Carey pointed out. I mean, remember in Luke chapter 15, the parable of the lost sheep, the shepherd bent over backwards and tore up the countryside looking for this one lost sheep. Do we? I mean, we want everyone to bend over backwards for us and our preference. As someone who works in facilities and maintenance and janitorial services at our church, I can tell you I overhear things, whether I want to or not. And I've often heard, why don't we have, or why don't we do, or I don't think we're doing enough. I hear a lot of that. But I don't ever hear, oh, there's a need in that ministry? Well, how can I help? I don't hear that as often. I hear it sometimes. But I hear a lot more what we ought to be doing, not what can I do. You know, in Ezekiel 22, verse 30, God says, I looked for someone among them who would build up the wall and stand before me in the gap on behalf of the land so I would not have to destroy it. But I found no one. So where's the gap stander? Of course, if you can't do something physically or you're called somewhere else, that's one thing. I am not called to be in a women's ministry. I think we can all agree. But if you can do it and it's something bothering you and it's a passion, go do it. Go try it. Don't get mad that no one else is doing it. You know, as Carey says in the article, the church should bend for the lost, not for itself. Look at Mark chapter 2, verse 17. It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners. The church doesn't exist to make sure that the righteous are happy and getting everything they want. Now, that doesn't mean the church can't have programs. That doesn't mean it can't help people or have ministries to help. We should, but when it becomes about that, meeting that need instead of, well, gee, is this getting in the way of our mission to reach others? That's a problem. When it becomes about my needs or my kids' needs or whatever, big issue. In fact, that's like calling it a country club church, as our former pastor John called it once. I thought that was a very apt term for what some churches become. Because as soon as it becomes country club church, where it's all about us and our preferences and traditions and yada, 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 you know what? Let's just close it up. Just close it up and leave, because it's now a club, a just us club. I mean, consider Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of the others. That's not just within the church, but that's also the needs of the community. Or even better, Matthew 16, verses 24 through 26, where Jesus says, take up your cross. He didn't say, take up your cross if it's convenient, and if you do, make sure it's gilded the right way. And yeah, take it to where you want to take it, by the way. If it gets too heavy, just drop it. No, he said, take it up and serve. Where in all these verses I've mentioned, amongst the many others I don't have time to mention, is it mentioned about me and what I want? It's not. Because at the end of the day, we've heard this so many times before, and as I said, the beatings will cease when motivation improves, when morale improves. When you become a Christian, it becomes selfless. It becomes, what can we do? And the other problem is, we want big, mega results because we're in America and that's what we get, right? Having a small group of only 3 to 4 people is considered an absolute failure on the metrics and value add scale. But is it? Jesus started with 12. And Paul would go to small synagogues and temples and groups. Yeah, they got bigger, sure. But the problem is, we read like the account of Peter in the book of Acts when the Spirit came upon him, and he all of a sudden says that it said that thousands came to them. But we think that's supposed to happen all the time. Well, no. So that's another me-ism. Why isn't this becoming a huge, big success and being what I want it to be? Maybe that's not what God wants it to be. So, in fact, as Paul said in Romans 7:7, we know we need to do, but we don't do it. Why don't we follow these? And that includes me. That includes double me, because I've made those kind of comments. You know why I said I know what that sounds like? Not just because I've heard other people say it, because I've heard myself say it. I'm just as a pox on my house as anybody else, if not more. Sometimes when we give a speech, we do it from the heart, from what we're struggling with. And this is mine, one of mine. Consumerism just doesn't have any place in the church, either in bombast and how much it's supposed to be successful, or meeting my needs as though I'm the customer of a church. There's no such thing as a church customer. We're not a business. So let me give 2 examples of where I've seen people make it about them and how we could correct that. We're going to wrap it up with this. I remember years ago, during one of the Thanksgiving meals, it was running a little late. I don't recall why, but there was an issue. It was running 15, 20 minutes late. No big deal. And there was a couple who attended the church regularly, by the way. This is Parma Heights, for those of you who attend there. And they were just livid that it was taking so long. They were just so angry. The things they could say, I was doing parking lot attendant at the time, and what I heard them say was so upsetting, because all I could think of was, you go here regularly. Member or not, you should be in there serving with us, not sitting here kvetching that you're not getting your needs met. The right answer would have been, gee, it's going slow. Is there a problem? How can we help? Another good example, and I know you've heard it before, but I'm going to say it again, masks and music style. How many people have said, I don't believe with the masks, yada, 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 yada. But the church has asked you to wear it. That should be the end of it. There shouldn't be anything beyond that. It's, the church asks you to do this, please do this. I mean, think about this. If you came in dropping F-bombs and watching stuff on YouTube or cranking vulgar music through the halls of the church, they'd ask you to stop, right? What are you supposed to do? Scream, no, it's all about me, 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 me. I'm going to do this if I want. No, we'd all agree that you shouldn't do that. It's a church. Oh, but the mask thing, that's different, because I don't know. And barring any kind of actual medical reason or exemption reason, uh, that's the problem where me-ism is actually hurting the church. It's a mask. This shouldn't be a big deal. Just put the mask on. Or music style. How many people have left a church because they had a worship problem? I've seen that. That's it. I mean, if it's really that bad, then just, I don't know, show up late or something. I don't know. I'm not going to say show up late to church, but it really just shouldn't be a big deal when you can listen to your preference of Christian music on your own time. So, so whatever's going to keep the harmony and help further the gospel is what we need. The final takeaway, how do we curb this bad habit? I've been in poor countries where churches without a pot to pee in or 2 cents to rub together have shown me the utmost hospitality. And I've been to a church in Mexico, and it's a mega church, but everyone pitches in to help fold and stack chairs on Sunday. The job's done in like 10, 15 minutes because everyone pitches in. And then you have certain staff that helps and volunteers, but stuff gets done so quick and efficiently because everyone helps out. Man, that would be awesome at our church. But nope, it doesn't always happen. Some believers do that. Some people do that. But I've met others who just think, nope, that's your job. That's not my job. So we know what we need to do. So why don't we do it? What's stopping us from making it not about me and serving? Well, a bad habit.